June is over, you guys. We are halfway through 2024. And you know what? Life is too short to not read. No, okay, anyway, that was dumb. But I did want to talk about my June wrap up. I actually had a pretty decent reading month. I read 11 books, which honestly for me, pretty good. I will say a lot of these were audiobooks. Audiobooks just come in clutch because you can listen to them all the time while you're cleaning, while you're doing dishes, whatever. Like doing things that don't require a lot of brain activity really allows you to like get in the zone. I was gonna say auto zone. Get in the zone and like listen to a good book. Anyway, with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about all of the books that I read in June, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk about them in order that I read them because I don't know, that's just kind of how I like to do it. But anyway, starting first, we started off strong with Saving Six by Chloe Walsh. This was a 5-star read for me. This is the very first book for Joey and Aoife. So this being Joey's book, I gotta say, it was a hard read. If you don't know what the Boys of Tom and series is, it is YA. It's classified as YA, but let me tell you, this is not like some sort of, oh my gosh, we're in high school, blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. This is very heavy. It deals with very heavy and mature topics. You need to look up triggers. You need to. I knew it was emotional, but I didn't know why. And it's a heavy book. So just know that the whole series is honestly pretty heavy. It's set in Ireland in 2005. So if that kind of gives you an idea as far as like technology and stuff like that, social media is not a thing in these books. So I actually really enjoyed it for that reason. But Saving Six was Joey's book. And if you don't know, Joey is Shannon's brother. Shannon is the heroine of book 1 and 2. And Joey is the older brother, and he's had to bear a lot of the responsibility after, you know, looking after his siblings, putting up with a lot of abuse and things that happen in this story. So I don't want to say too much, because if you haven't read book 1 and 2, this is, you know, kind of following that, but also not really, because I will say Saving Six takes you kind of to events prior to book 1, because Joey is older than Shannon. So you do get to see a lot of that. You also get to see a lot of the things and just how bad the dynamic is in their home, because Joey, again, being older and really being a victim of all of this abuse, you really get to see a lot of it. So Joey's books are really heavy. I would definitely say that they're some of like the heaviest ones for sure in the series so far. I have started Taming Seven. I haven't read it, but just be warned, okay? So that's Saving Six. It was a 5-star read for me, even though it was very heavy. I got very emotional at times. I really had to put it down sometimes because, again, these are heavy books. So just know that going in, but it was a 5-star read for me. And then I read Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. I needed something light. This is by Christina Lauren, and I rated it a 4-star. So Josh and Hazel met in college, and they could not be any more different. Josh is basically very, I think they call it type A. Is that the personality that's very like organized and very like A, B, C, D, like that, right? And then you have Hazel, who's very like, you know, just kind of outgoing. She's very lovable. People love her. She's very quirky. She's very outgoing, but a lot of guys have like dated her because they like that, but then at the same time they're like, oh, you need to be a little bit more serious, or like you're a little bit too much, blah blah blah. Her and Josh become really good friends, but you know, after college they all go their separate ways. She doesn't really see him anymore. But years later they end up reuniting because they end up having mutual friends, and because they reconnect, they start spending a little bit more time together and kind of catching up and seeing where they're each at in their life. And as they're spending this time together, they really start to connect. And again, they're very opposite. So if you like opposites attract, this is the book for you. I thought it was a really sweet romance. I feel like Josh, even though he is like this type A personality and he's very like A, B, C, D, whatever, I really liked that he very clearly accepted Hazel for exactly who she was and did not see her as just like oh, you know, she's just like refreshing because she's different, but also like she's too much. Like she was never too much in his eyes, and he loved, like genuinely loved that about her. And he, if anything, encouraged her to continue being herself and to continue being the person that she was. So I found that really heartwarming. So that was a 4-star listen for me. And then I read Redeeming Six by Chloe Walsh, which is book 4 in the Boys of Tommen. Again, this book is also about Joey. Very, very heavy. I think I liked Redeeming Six even more than Saving Six, but again, very heavy, still a 5-star read. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. And then I read The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. This one is like a 3.5 to a 4-star read, and basically you have this hero and heroine who met in college, they dated, they were in love. Now he played football for the college and he's gonna get drafted into the NFL, and she does kind of have some insecurities that basically make her think, well, now that he's gonna get drafted into the NFL, he's probably just gonna dump me, so I might as well dump him first. That coupled also with the fact that she wants to be a sports agent and she feels like, I'm not going to be putting my life on hold. Like here he is getting his dreams and getting things that he wants, and if I keep kind of prioritizing him, even though he's going to like leave me, I'm not going to follow my own path and follow my own dreams. So she ends up breaking up with him, and he's very heartbroken about it. He's very shocked about it, but they go their separate ways. So flash forward now, it's been a few years. He is a professional NFL player and she is a pretty successful sports agent. And it just so happens that the agency that she works for is the agency that represents him. And he does have his own agent and he has no idea that she works for the same agency. But when something happens to his agent, she ends up getting assigned to meet with him. And she is surprised that like he accepted the meeting and that he was okay with her being the agent, except there was like some sort of misunderstanding. So he didn't know that she was the one that was going to be his agent. And as soon as he sees her, he's like, hell no. No, 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 no. You are not going to be my agent. Screw you. Blah, blah, blah. And she is like basically doing the groveling, and she's like, listen, give me a chance. Like my agency is taking a chance on me and is letting me handle like you as a client, and like this is my chance to prove myself. Like please, 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 I'm gonna be the best agent that you've ever had, blah, blah, blah. He decides, okay, you know what, sure, go ahead. And basically his whole goal is to have her quit. He's like, I'm gonna make her life so miserable that she's gonna quit, and then I don't even have to fire her. And so he starts doing that, but she's not gonna give up. She knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, she can tell, but she's like, nope, if he thinks that he's gonna get me to quit, that is not gonna happen. They start spending all this time together, all these memories from the past come up, and they kind of end up working through their past hurt that they had with each other. Him even more than her, because he's the one that got dumped, and a lot of things start happening. So this is a second chance romance for all my second chance lovers out there. Then I listened to Crazy Stupid Bromance by Liza K. Adams. So if you don't know, this whole series basically follows like a group of these successful men. Some of them are professional athletes, some of them are CEOs, and they have a romance book club. I don't know if this actually exists in real life. Hard to believe, but also if it is, all the power to you. I think that is so sweet, because these guys are literally reading romance novels to work through basically the stereotypes and like the way that men are taught to act. Like they have to always be tough and like not show their feelings and all this stuff. So they're reading these books to work through those issues and that mindset that they grew up with, and also to be better partners to their girlfriends, fiancés, wives. So sweet. The idea, I love it. So these are very like feel good type of romances. This one in particular has to do with Noah, who is one of like the newer recruits to this romance club, and he has this huge crush on Alexis, who he's become really good friends with. He is in like tech and everything, and she is a cafe owner. She has like stray cats that are in her cafe, like this whole thing, right? And so they've become really good friends, but he's also really attracted to her, and he essentially ends up joining this book club because he wants them to help him turn that friendship into something more. And then, oh my god, this book. I listened to Pen Pal by JT Geisinger. 5 stars. 5 stars. I made a TikTok about this because I was like, what did I just read? I had heard about this book and I had never read it. And honestly, I should have known it was going to be good because I love other JT Geisingers. In fact, Broken Vow or Brutal Vow. I always get confused if it's Broken Vow or Brutal Vows. Love that book. It's a mafia book. If you haven't read it, oh my God, read it, because Spider, I know you think what a name, that's his nickname, he's in the mafia. Anyway, so Pen Pal, it starts off very creepy. That's all I'm gonna say. I really don't want to say anything, and honestly, look up triggers, but also just go blind. Don't look into it. After you look up triggers, if you're okay with the triggers, go into it. It was so good. It was so unexpected. It was like, I thought I was like, it was going somewhere, and let me just tell you, you're gonna be pretty confused. I was also really creeped out because a lot of things happen, and me listening to it home alone, do not recommend. If you're a chicken like me, I don't recommend it, but I did do most of the listening to it while I was home alone, so I was very creeped out. But just know, you probably won't really, actually not probably, you definitely won't know what's going on until you're like about 80% of the book. I thought it was going one way and it just completely went the opposite. So just know that going in, 5-star read. I wanted to cry so bad. Every time, every single time that I think about that book for too long, I start to get the chills. So good. It is a romance. It is a romance. So just know that. But it's not your typical type of romance, so also know that going in. Okay, next, something totally different. It was Tell Me How You Hate Me by Callie Mel. This one I rated it a 3.5 star. This is a ice skating romance, and it is enemies to lovers. From the very beginning, I was like, ooh, color me intrigued, because these two hate each other, absolutely hate each other, but they're really good, badass ice skaters, and they are basically trying to be part of the Olympic team. So they have all of these competitions lined up, and for one reason or another, both basically end up without their ice skating partners, and their coaches recommend for them to join forces. And as much as they hate each other, they both recognize that they really couldn't have asked for a better partner, because they're both kind of like the top best of the best in their own right. And so they both have to now be forced to like work together and spend all this time together. Now the funny thing is that this is like enemies to lovers, but also her brother is his best friend. So it is like best friend's sister and brother's best friend. So you have that going there. The only reason, because I really enjoyed it. Like I had never read an ice skating romance, and I actually started watching like ice skating competitions as I was reading this book, because it just kind of got me in the mood to watch it, because I really enjoy it. Like the fact that these ice skaters can do that with their body is insane. The only reason why I rated a 3.5 is because I felt like for enemies to lovers, I really need them to hate each other so I can really buy it. And that's the thing, I felt like there wasn't enough reasoning for them to hate each other, and also I feel like it just kind of got summarized a little bit too quickly. But otherwise, a great read, so I would recommend it. The next book that I listened to was The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This one I rated a 3.75, and it is a marriage of convenience. So you have these two, I was gonna say kids. So you have these two people who met in college very briefly, and she needed housing, or like affordable housing, and the only way that they could have done that was if they were like married. I don't really understand why, to be honest. Like even when I was listening to the book, I was like, that seems really interesting and different. But they end up getting married and they're living together, and I think once he graduates or finishes his undergraduate, whatever, he moves out of their apartment, and she's like, cool, we got divorced. Years go by, and she has changed her degree. She was going to go into the medical field, but she completely changes it for like an art major. Art is what she loves to do. It's what she's good at. But she's at home in her underwear when someone knocks on her door, and who is it but her ex-husband, who she basically had only had a few words and a few run-ins with, because even when they were living together, they hardly ever saw each other. He basically ends up telling her, listen, I need your help, because if you don't come with me to this family thing and my family finds out that our marriage is fake, I am at risk of losing my inheritance. And she's like, first of all, what inheritance? Because I thought you were a struggling college student just like me. And also, what do you mean married? Because I thought that we were divorced. And it turns out that no, they've actually been married this whole time. And there was this whole clause in his inheritance where he had to be married for at least 5 years in order for him to get full access of his inheritance, because his family is filthy rich. So now she's forced to go on this trip with him to a private island for his sister's wedding, and they have to pretend that they've been in love this whole time, that she is still in the medical field because that's what he thought she was doing, and they couldn't be further from the truth. So it was a really lighthearted, cute romance, and I really enjoyed it. Actually, the thought of like being on an island and stuff, I was like, God, like it just makes you want to go to like the beach and like swim and snorkel and do all those things. So just know that this is like the perfect book to read in the summer, I think. So listen to Isn't It Romantic by Liza K. Adams. And again, this is part of that same book club, but this one is a marriage of convenience as well. But you have Vlad and Elena, who were best friends since they were kids. She lived next door, and her dad was like this big journalist in Russia, but he would leave her home alone a lot. So she basically spent most of her time at Vlad's house with her, you know, with his mom, and they basically took her under their wing. Now, at one point, her dad does go missing because he was working on something that was pretty dangerous, I guess, like a dangerous story. He tells her, hey, how about you come with me? I just signed the contract for hockey in, you know, the NHL in the US. Why don't you come with me? And she's like, well, how am I gonna go? Like, I can't just go to, you know, the US. And he's like, let's get married. So they get married, they move over to the US, and they're living in the same home, but they're just friends. And she does end up actually leaving to Chicago, where she's gonna continue her journalism major. Vlad tells her, listen, actually, like, I have feelings for you. I want something more with you. And like, she feels like yes, but also no. He is such a sweetheart. Like, literally, Vlad, golden retriever, teddy bear, bunny, I don't know, any soft, fluffy things that you can think of, that's Vlad. He's like this big Russian hockey player, but he is the sweetest, most lovable guy. Like, he is so, so cute. I had already loved seeing him in the friend group and the other 3 books, so him getting his own book was so cute. And also, one thing I didn't mention earlier, Liza K and the Spice. I'm like, girl. But it was a fun listen. And then I read, I'm laughing, Credence by Penelope Douglas. I'm not gonna go into it. I made a whole vlog about it. If you haven't heard about Credence, let me just quickly tell you what it's about. You have this girl who loses her parents, who, I didn't know this going in, but her parents were trash. And she is about to turn 18 in a few months, but she does find out that there's this step uncle that she didn't know about, and step cousins. She's never met this uncle or cousins, but because her parents were in the spotlight, she ends up thinking, you know what, this is like the perfect thing that I need right now, and she moves over to that small town. But they don't really live in the town, they live up in the mountain, and it goes from there. It is a white shoes romance between the step uncle, but I'm using that loosely because, again, they never met each other and there's no blood relation, and the 2 cousins. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Full vlog about it, but if you want to know my rating, I think it was a 3.5 or 3.75, something like that. I go over why in the vlog. Check it out if you want to know more. Last but not least, the last book that I read in June is The One I Stood Beside by Piper Rain, and I rated this a 4.5 star out of 5. So in this one, it is a second book. It's a small town romance, and you have Jude, who is the oldest of the Newton boys. There is 3 boys in total, and you have Sadie. Sadie is your girl next door. She is the one, well, next door in a ranch, so they're pretty spread out, but they've been friends since they were really young. They basically formed this bond when they were 6 years old, and they've become really, really good friends. Jude is known as the grump. He's the more serious of the brothers. He's very grumpy, except when it comes to her, and he is very, very protective of Sadie. They've been friends for years now, and Jude is now 34, and I want to say Sadie is 33, and she decides, you know what, I'm gonna finally come out and tell Jude that I'm in love with him, that I've had feelings for him for a long time, and if he doesn't reciprocate them, then oh well. Like, I can't keep living my life waiting for him to realize that I'm in love with him. And she is about to do it, but some stuff happens and she ends up not being able to tell him. But because of these things that happen, she's in a little bit of a pickle, and she basically needs help to not lose the ranch that her family has had for generations. And Jude obviously is the first one to jump in. He wants to help Sadie. The only way that he can really help her is by marrying her. She would have wanted to marry him because he would have said, oh my gosh, like I love you too, you know, whatever. But that obviously never happened. So they end up getting into this marriage of convenience, and then the story goes on from there. So you have your marriage of convenience, childhood friends to lovers, forced proximity, because obviously they have to sell the marriage, so she has to move in. And yeah, I really liked Jude. I think I connected with him as like the older child syndrome. If you're the older child, I feel like there's like something that we can all connect with, of just being that older child. And for some reason, you just kind of feel that responsibility of like looking after your younger siblings, or maybe your parents tell you like, hey, you need to set the example, blah, 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 blah. And so I think I connected with Jude in that way. Because of some of the things that happen with Jude, especially when he's a child, and you see that in the very beginning of the book, he kind of feels this pressure of having to be tough and having to be strong for his family. Through my own life experience, I had something similar to that. So I really connected with him in that way. But I just really thought that he was like such a sweetheart. And I really like when it's like he's really grumpy, except with her. You know, the only reason why it wasn't a 5-star is because some of the revelations and some of the things that happen, I wish they would have been a little bit more dramatic. That could just be the Leo and me talking. So take that with a grain of salt. But again, 4.5 stars. But anyway, with that said, those are the 11 books that I read in the month of June. Let me know if any of these sound like something that you would want to check out if you haven't, or if you read anything similar to this, let me know. Let me know what your favorite books were for June, because I'm always interested in finding out about some really great recommendations. But otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.